And then there were four teams to go, 4 games to go. A place in the IPL final in 2020 up for grabs as the Mumbai Indians take on the Delhi Capitals in qualifier number 1 of this year's tournament. It is in Dubai, and it is two teams that stood out in the league phase. Delhi did have a few of those wheels coming off, but they managed to win their last game against Bangalore to secure second place. Mumbai have been outstanding. They've been the standout team of this league phase, and it's a different equation when it comes to a knockout game or a qualifier. How will these two teams fare? We'll build up to this big one with Gautam Gambhir and Tom Moody, two men who know all about the playoffs when it comes to the IPL. On Whirlpool presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by Dell. Gentlemen, welcome. Gautam, Tom, I mean, I'd love to say excited, but you guys don't care about these as much as I do. I'm very excited when the qualifiers come along. Tom, is there a sense of excitement when the playoffs finally reach us after a long league phase?
I think absolutely there is. I think whether you're directly involved or you're involved like we are from afar, commenting throughout the whole IPL, we all build up to this moment where you're wanting to see, who is the best team, who is the team that's going to be able to be composed under pressure during finals time. As Gotham clearly knows as well, it's far from done at this stage. There's still a lot of hard work to do and a lot of highs and lows to ride before you end up lifting that trophy.
Gautam, the conversation ahead of this one would have been, Mumbai, such a strong team, so good in the league phase, beat to Delhi twice. Somehow you do sense, though, that before a playoff, a lot more becomes equal, isn't it?
Oh, this is the real deal, and it really doesn't matter how you reach the playoffs. Now it's about even Stevens. Every team has probably got an equal opportunity to go out there and probably beat the opposition. And whether you get beaten twice in the league stage, it actually counts for nothing. So obviously the pressure will be exactly the same on Mumbai and Delhi. Obviously, when you're playing the league stage, whoever is on top of the table obviously has got lesser pressure as compared to someone who is into that situation where it's a must-win game. But today, I think they both start even Stevens, and whoever plays better cricket probably will end up winning the game. And in a T20 format, actually, it's such an unpredictable format. Actually, an individual can win you a game as well. So probably it's equal pressure for both the sides.
Yeah, I like what Gautam said there, Tom. I don't know if you agree with that. Do you agree with that statement? It does.
Absolutely. It's ideal if you get there in your first or second, because as we know, you get two chances, like both these teams tonight. Ideally you want to go straight through the final, but the worst case scenario, you've still got a chance to enter the final, but you're just having to play another game to do it.
Simple as that. But Delhi would have hoped at least a few things go in their favor against what does seem like a more formidable opposition in the Mumbai Indians. And it starts well with the toss. So Shreyas Iyer's won it, and he's going to have a bowl first in Delhi. How significant are these tosses? I know, Gautam, that you say that you've got to play well either way. But for a team like Delhi, who perhaps go into this as lesser favorites, if that's fair to say, important toss to win?
Yeah, to a certain extent because of the due factor. But if you see the teams on the paper, obviously both the teams got a stronger bowling lineup. Both the teams got really decent batting. But yes, obviously it's a little bit of an advantage from the due point of view. But again, I think runs on the board are runs on the board, and it really matters if Mumbai can put 170, 180 on the board. Obviously, it's got to be pressure time for Delhi batters, because Delhi batters actually have struggled in the last couple of games. There has been individual performances like Shikhar Dhawan, Ajinkya Rahane contributed in the last game, but if you see the entire batting unit, it hasn't clicked collectively. Yeah, there has been brilliance from Marcus Stoinis. So obviously putting runs on the board can be actually an advantage for someone like Mumbai Indians, depending how much they put.
Yeah, I'm clutching at straws for Mumbai's league campaign, Tom, but in the 4 defeats that they did have, 2 were in the super over. The 2 that they did have in normal time were while they were setting a total against Rajasthan, and then 1 in the last game against the Sunrisers. Would that be on their mind at all?
I think the last game, not so much, because I think the surface in Sharjah was, played very much into Sunrisers' hand and their attack. So I think they'll dust that one off very quickly and focus on what they need to do here. And I agree with Gotham in that, that they'll be very keen to set and they won't be trying to set the impossible target, but they'll be very keen to set not a formidable, strong target, because we've seen quite often how Delhi have just been so vulnerable with the bat. So to just create those, a little bit of uncertainty around their chase, suddenly they're going to have to look at other people to step up that haven't done for the last few weeks.
Now they
See,
made
Ronald,
it for the
just
team.
want to add one thing. Today, probably I feel that Delhi batters might have a little bit of a freedom because they know that they can actually slip up. They've got another game if they end up slipping up today. So they have another opportunity to reach the final. So probably that just gives them that little bit of freedom to go out there and express themselves more. Had this been a game where it is a must-win game kind of a thing, where it's three playing the fourth, probably they would have been under much more pressure as compared to what they would be today. Yes, you would want to reach directly to the finals, but at least you've got another opportunity. If you don't actually have the best day today, probably another opportunity to reach the finals.
Yeah, it's a fair point. Now, Delhi stick with the same team that beat Bangalore in their last league phase. So, having a look at that team, they stick with the extra insurance, if you can call it that, of keeping Ajinkya Rahane after that. You could say that match-winning half century, take them over the line. Prithvi Shaw retains his place. Daniel Sams retains his place. They'll be happy that R. Ashwin doesn't have an extension of an injury, which we thought might put him in doubt for this one. So he plays. No other changes, which isn't much of a surprise. I wonder what your thoughts were, Gautam, when they played the team they did in the last game against Bangalore. They brought in Rahane. We could see why they did it, but it did in some ways change the balance of the team. It changed the team they've been playing through the tournament, and now it looks like you've got to play that team through the playoffs.
It looks a very good side. It looks a good. In fact, the bowling unit looks even more stronger with Daniel Sams coming in, because I think Delhi struggled with their third seamer, especially the Indian seamer. Whether it was Tushar Deshpande or Harshal Patel, now they've got an experienced Daniel Sams plus a left armer who can swing the ball back in, especially someone like Rohit Sharma can hit a long ball as well, especially batting at number 7. So I think this looks a much more balanced side as compared to what they were playing initially. Yes, obviously Ajinkya Rahane does give them that little bit of probably insurance at number 3. But again, I think this is going to be a completely different bowling lineup. They will have to cater against Jasprit Bumrah and Trent Bolt. So obviously, this I still feel is a much better balanced side as compared to what they had earlier.
Tom, do you concur with that? That they've actually got the right balance right towards the end of the tournament?
Yeah, I think they have, and I think Ajinkya Rahane is the one that solved the puzzle, because what he has done through his selection, or his selection again, because this is his second time round, with the form he's shown in the last innings, he was picked basically as insurance just to give them that depth because they were concerned about their batting, but it's enabled them to strengthen their bowling and also provide a little variation to their bowling with the left arm of Sams. Sams is also capable, ball hitter down the order, but he's not really employed for that. He's more employed to bowl the 4 overs effectively, ideally a couple up front and a couple at the back end. But it does look like a more, it's certainly a better balanced 11 than what they've had previously.
Looking at the way they've played, Gautam, and we've been discussing this with you too throughout Delhi season, of the approach by Shreyas Iyer, by Rishabh Pant, and you said at the top of the season that we have to keep a very close eye on how some of these players that are looking to, of course, make it back to the Indian team or secure a place in the Indian team go about. Shreyas Iyer, strike rate 120 odd. Rishabh Pant has had a bit of an anomaly of a season from his otherwise high standards in the IPL. Does it play into their hands a little more that they get to chase? They know what their target is. Rahane is a similar sort of batsman, and we discussed that. Does this toss become more important looking at the way that Delhi's batsmen have gone about this season?
See, it could go both ways. Obviously, when you have the target in mind, when you know what you're chasing, obviously it just clears your mind up more. But when you're setting the target, you always, especially against a team like Mumbai, you want to try and put 170, 180 because you know that Mumbai is capable of chasing anything. But then from Rishabh and Shreyas's point of view, they started off reasonably well. But then again, I think sometimes it just boils down to that how much pressure can you actually handle, and especially whether the Indian selection is actually on your mind and whether you have to prove a lot of people wrong and that kind of a stuff as well. And we started speaking about this before the start of the tournament as well, that there could be a lot of players who are actually on the fringe of whether making it to the squad, whether not making it to the squad. So sometimes you can start thinking about your own self rather than the performances and rather than how to help the team win, and that can actually easily happen. And what happens is, if you've got a slip up in your form, it gets really difficult because you're actually thinking about your India selection, and at the same time you're trying to actually in a T20 format try to play at a decent strike rate as well. So probably with Shreyas and Rishabh especially, I think bowlers have got smarter. So when bowlers get smarter, you got to get even more smarter. You got to develop your game much more. Rishabh unfortunately has not developed his game in the last couple of years. So it's just that bowlers will start figuring it out. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? So probably yes, Rishabh needs to probably get his game a little bit more, I think, on the offside, he needs to improve his game because he doesn't play too many shots on the offside.
Yeah, I was going to come exactly to that. If I could just go deeper on that before I go to Tom. When you say he hasn't developed his game over the last 2 years, and you touched upon it, offside play. We've seen he's got shots in the offside if he plays it. What would you like to see that development as? What would you want Rishabh Pant to do to take it to one level higher?
See, first of all, obviously, you have to stop comparing Rishabh Pant that he's an alternate to MS Dhoni. That is one thing which first media needs to do it, and then secondly, because the more media talks about it, the more he starts thinking on those fronts as well. He can never be MS Dhoni. He has to be Rishabh Pant, and at the same time, MS Dhoni probably had so much of range when he came onto the international scene. And Rishabh Pant, only because he can hit those big sixes and stuff, people started comparing him to someone like MS Dhoni. Rishabh Pant has a lot to improve, especially from the keeping point of view and from the batting point of view as well. I hope he comes off and scores those important runs today. But then again, if I see that bowlers have got smarter, they've started bowling probably a little wider outside the off stump, and then he struggled. So that's the reason, first and foremost, people around him, in media, everyone needs to stop comparing him and stop saying that he's an alternate, because there will always be some alternate or the other to MS Dhoni, especially in India, because there is a lot of talent there.
Seems like it's the coach's job to try and get him into the right head space, Tom.
Yeah, coach's job, but also he just needs to understand, who he is and how he wants to play and where his greatest strength is. He needs to be authentic to himself. Too often young players, and he may well be case in point, bow down to the expectations of the media and the expectations of, their coaches or other people. At the end of the day, the best players, when they work out what their game is about and what's authentic to their game. How is it they're going to be the most consistent player? Now, I feel that his strike rate this season has a lot to do with him trying to do the right thing by others against being that free-spirited player, which he is. He is that free-spirited player. He's dangerous. He's got a rare talent with regards to his ball striking. Let yourself go. Be yourself, and just make sure the people around you understand and support you when it goes wrong. So if you do get caught on the boundary playing one of your shots, you are supported and backed by others that this is the way we want you to play, and we're supporting him 100%.
And Rana, can I just add one thing?
Please.
Yeah, when you spoke about how to develop a game, when Virat Kohli started T20 cricket, he was never a big hitter of the cricket ball. But then over a period of time, now you see Virat Kohli actually smashing those big sixes. On the other hand, when MS Dhoni started his international career, he was all about hitting those big sixes. But then he obviously developed his game in rotating better strike as well. So all successful international cricketers develop their game. It's not only about playing this is my way or highway. That's not how international cricket or cricket works. You got to keep developing other aspects of the game as well. You know that if you have the ability to probably rotate strike consistently, you have the ability to hit those big sixes. So it has to be your overall game to be a consistent and a successful international cricketer. So I don't believe in that idea when people say, oh, this is how I play, take it or leave it. No, that's not what team sport is all about. People have changed. People have changed according to the situations, according to the game, how to develop, what teams wants them to do it. So prime example has been someone like MS Dhoni and Virat Kohli both.
Yeah, the playoffs present an opportunity to leave everything behind, doesn't it, Tom? We spoke of Shane Watson recently at the end of what's now a glorious white ball career for the Australian all-rounder. And you remember that season, Tom remembers it better than anybody, of how Watson didn't buy a run all tournament and then suddenly decided to show up against the Sunrisers in the final. We have such stories in the IPL time and time again, players that just show up when it comes to the finals. I'm trying to think of how this happens or why this happens just before a playoff or a qualifier, whether the team talk becomes that much shorter instead of longer.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of talking over a number of weeks over an IPL tournament. There's only so much you can say. I think the players are more often than not well prepared, both mentally and physically, with regards to the challenge that they're faced. And it's no surprise to me that the big players come up on big occasions, because regardless of what their form has been leading into it, they relish the big stage. That's why they've had a decorated career. That's why they're that they've got the international experience. They've got, if they've had a lean run, it's no big deal, because suddenly you walk on the pitch and it is a final. Suddenly the poor season you've had, or the poor tournament you had, is not relevant. What's relevant is you relishing that opportunity and having that great buzz and that feeling of playing in a big game. And you just go into autopilot, and before you know it, you are back to your best.
Mm-hmm. Is it about a big player? It could be any player, could become a man of the final. Manvinder Bisla is well etched in the memory of Gautam Gambhir and the Knight Riders. It happens in finals, doesn't it, Gautam? Anyone can just have their day.
Ronak, it's a very interesting story. In 2012, when we reached our first finals, and we were playing in Chennai, so obviously Trevor Bayliss was there. So obviously Trevor Bayliss spoke in the team meeting, the final, just before before we were about to leave the hotel. And then when my turn came, I said, let's go. That's about it. I didn't say a word. And I didn't need to. And even when we were actually bowling first, I went into the huddle and I didn't say a word, because I wanted people to actually enjoy the occasion. And at the same time, they need to relish the big stage as well. That was the first final KKR went through. And sometimes the lesser you say, the more it is. You don't have to say it just for the heck of saying it. Trevor Bayliss said it. I didn't say a word, even during the team meeting, even during the huddle as well. I just said that just enjoy it. Probably the only way we will win this final is if we can silence the crowd and try and do that. Let's go.
Yeah, less is more times, and we'll see if that works for the Delhi Capitals. They're going to come up against a formidable side. Now, if you look at the Mumbai Indians, they're back at full strength. Everyone's back. Hardik Pandya is back. Jasprit Bumrah is back. Trent Bolt is back. The only selection call you'd think that they'd have to have made was whether they retain James Pattinson, who started the season, or Nathan Coulter-Nile. And they've gone for Coulter-Nile, Tom. I wonder what you make of that. Everything else pretty much picks itself.
Yeah, I think it would have been a fine line, that decision. But I think Coulter-Nile is a better all-round package in this format of the game than Pattinson. And I think if Coulter-Nile wasn't injured at the start of the tournament, he would have started in their playing 11 as well. Pattinson has done well for them, but he's just drifted off over the last couple of weeks. So I think the decision for Coulter-Nile, I think, is the right decision, because he is an impact bowler as well. He's got that great ability to take wickets, and he's also an option for him at the back end of the innings.
You go with that, Gautam? I know Ajit Agarkar and Deep Dasgupta on the preview to this game said Pattinson, the bowler, has looked better, has been more threatening, even though the last few games haven't gone his way. They've gone with Coulter-Nile.
No, I would go with Coulter-Nile. Plus, with Coulter-Nile, what happens is you got to give the new ball to Jasprit Bumrah and Trent Bolt. But if you go with James Pattinson, probably Jasprit Bumrah bowls one change, but Coulter-Nile is smart enough to bowl actually one change or after 6 overs as well. With James Pattinson in, obviously you have to give him the new ball. So Jasprit Bumrah becomes a defensive bowler. I would definitely want to see Jasprit Bumrah with the new ball alongside Trent Bolt, and then Coulter-Nile probably in the middle of the innings, because he does a very good job, especially in the middle of the innings. So probably it's a good selection to have.
All right, brilliant. Now, Rohit Sharma, that's the other conversation we're going to have now. Mumbai captain, amidst all the mystery surrounding his injury. God only knows why there's so much secrecy around player injuries in Indian cricket, but he's back and he played the last game, didn't quite get the runs. We're tempted to have a bit of a discussion on Rohit Sharma because he's not quite bossed the IPL. Perhaps injuries, perhaps the big layoff, Tom. We're trying to make sense of what it'll take to have Rohit Sharma have an impact in these playoffs. And we even flirted, our stats team even flirted with the idea, because Rohit's just coming back from injury and that Kishan and De Kock had such a fine little spell together at the top, whether that can be continued in the playoffs to try and get the best out of Rohit Sharma.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't be flirting with that at all. I think Rohit Sharma, we talked about big games, big players. He is a big player and enjoys a big game. So I'd be leaving him exactly where he's at. Interesting enough, we're talking about a lot of quality top order batsmen and their strike rates and how they're struggling. I think the point needs to be made. I think that is a reflection also of this year's tournament. I don't think batting has been as easy in this IPL as what we've seen in previous editions. Hence, we've seen a lot of strike rates suffering. Yes, the volume of runs are there, but we're not sort of having the consistent matchup of strike rates for our top order players.
Yeah, can you put a finger to it, Gautam? We did discuss this too. Even a Virat Kohli, he's got the number of runs, but hasn't quite looked like he's in that sort of rhythm, bossing the IPL like he does every year. Rohit Sharma as well, two of India's best players, not quite having that impact in this year's IPL. Can you put a finger to it?
Difficult because you don't expect someone like Rohit Sharma to have this kind of a season. Because especially when he's opening the batting, you want to have that, you want to see that impact with Rohit Sharma. And when he plays for India, he has such a huge impact, and that's why we keep talking about he's never actually bossed the IPL.
Yeah.
Not only this IPL, but I think if you see the entire career, he's never had a season like 700-800 run season. But that's very, I can't point a finger. Virat Kohli, obviously, it can be one of kind of that season because he has bossed the uh, IPL earlier as well, especially with when he's got those 300 or 400 in one season. So with Rohit Sharma, it's a strange thing because when he plays for India, he's a completely different player. When it comes to Mumbai Indians, he looks a little bit out of sorts. I don't know what's the reason because he's captain India as well. It's not that captaincy pressure probably
Yeah.
pulls him down. When he captains for India, he's still a different player, different beast. But surprisingly, in IPL, when you expect him to just probably have a huge IPL or probably one of the most successful batters in the IPL and impactful batters, he hasn't been like that till now.
Now he's had a couple of pretty decent half centuries early on in this season in Abu Dhabi. Let's see if he saves one for the playoffs. To just close the chapter on Rohit Sharma for now, there's intrigue surrounding the mystery on Rohit's selection for the Indian team, Gautam. Now that he finds himself back playing for Mumbai, I wonder if you have any opinion at all on it. Does he now automatically just make the team, as Saurav Ganguly recently said, that if he's fit, he plays?
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. He should be on the plane to Australia as soon as the IPL finishes. No doubt about it. If Rohit Sharma is fit, he's the first choice. Alongside Virat Kohli, I'm not saying Virat Kohli will be the first choice. Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli probably are first choice on the plane to Australia alongside Jasprit Bumrah. So the question doesn't even arise.
Yep. There's enough. There's got to be an extra seat for Rohit Sharma on that plane, Tom, as many as they're taking.
If there's not, they better find one.
I'll probably get the probably get one of the crew out of the plane.
Yeah, get the crew out of the plane if you need to, but make sure you have Rohit Sharma on it. Simple as that from Gautam and Tom. Okay, let's look ahead now to the game itself. If there is a score indeed in mind, I don't know how much Dew would play as part of your calculations, Gautam, if you're put into bat first. Mumbai, what if the receiving end of a fine Ben Stokes 100 when they're defending a big score? Does that play at all in your mind in a playoff game? Right, let's go harder.
I don't think so. I think you can't control the due factor. How much due there's going to be, whether there's going to be any, whether there's going to be a lot, you can't control that. And you can't think that, okay, because of the due factor, you need to get 200. See, the moment you start thinking about getting 200, you might end up getting bowled out for a 140 or a 50, and Mumbai would never want that. You start off like just a normal game and probably take it as it comes because 1 or 2 overs can change the entire game. And 170, 180 on this kind of especially in a playoff, will be a lot of pressure on Delhi batter. And Ben Stokes. Ben Stokes is also a freak. When we talk about AB de Villiers, mind you, Ben Stokes is a freak, and he was the one who got probably 100, and that's why Rajasthan could chase that total. So anything around 170, 180 would be a very good total.
Now, Kagiso Rabada does not have the new ball in hand, and that's happened quite often this season. Daniel Sams is playing this one, Tom, and you'd think he would take the first over. Rabada's numbers in the power play is another talking point we'd reserve for this game, and they aren't great. And he is such a great bowler. So we're just trying to understand why it hasn't quite clicked for him. Is it because of the role that the team's given him? Would you, in a big game like this, throw him first up against De Kock and Rohit?
Yeah, look, I definitely would. I think, again, as I've said throughout the IPL on this program, you look at who are your bowlers are most likely to take your wickets in the power play and you bowl them, because the key to power play overs, in my view, is taking wickets. Your runs are going to happen regardless, but if you're taking wickets whilst they're trying to score runs, you're always going to be in a better position come the end of the power play. So to me, Rabada is not only the best bowler in that team, he's one of the best bowlers in the whole tournament, if not the best. Yes, he's only taken one wicket, but I think Rabada, like a lot of big name bowlers, the opposition plan to deny them wickets. So when he does bowl in the power play, the opposition are a lot more cautious with him and looking to preserve their wicket against him, knowing that they can catch up against other bowlers, against sort of being exposed early on by losing wickets.
I'd also wonder if that's been how they've used him. They've used him just about 1 over every other game in the power play, Gautam. And you made a good point that when they pick Pattinson, Mumbai have to bowl Pattinson new ball, so Bumrah goes in later. When you pick Daniel Sams, it looks like you've got to give him the new ball and maybe Nauke or R. Ashwin at the other end. Automatically, Rabada goes down later. So I'm trying to think of, regardless of all that, are you going to bowl Rabada the new ball?
Well, I'll definitely start with Daniel Sams, especially a left armer
Hmm.
who can swing the ball back in. We've seen Rohit Sharma struggle against a left arm seam who can bring the ball back in. So I would definitely start with him and Rabada. And obviously, when there were two left-handers, you can think of starting with Ravichandran Ashwin, but not today, especially when there is Rohit Sharma at the other end. So probably I'll start with Rabada and Daniel Sams, your
All
two
right.
best bowlers, and see how it
Yep.
goes.
Sure. Daniel Sams has started off already. Now it's coming to the end of what's been a very unique IPL. There's no way that fans haven't been able to physically be present in the stands, but don't worry because watching is the new everything, and we've got some stunning visuals from the host cities for our fans. Have a look. We're coming to the end of it all, and I'm sure maybe some of these players maybe will extend their holiday and stay back and enjoy the UAE. Gautam, have you enjoyed the UAE in your time?
I loved it.
Hmm.
Apart from me not scoring, I loved every bit of it. Got 3 ducks there. How can I enjoy that? And I remember Ashish Nara actually telling me before the fourth game, we were staying in the same hotel, so we went out for dinner. And he said that have a duck today. So I said, why? I said, I don't eat duck. He said, have a duck today. At least you won't score a duck tomorrow.
Well, that was 2014, wasn't it, when that happened?
Yeah,
And I think you would take the eventual result of the IPL,
eventual result. I definitely will.
even if you didn't get those runs. Tom, you've already spoken about your very fond memories bowling to Sachin and Sharjah and the UAE.
Yeah, look, they seem to still roll that tape out for some reason. It always surprises me it comes out, but yeah, like it's a fascinating place. It's amazing how it's evolved over the years, and to think that there's 3 major cricket grounds there now that we're seeing a full IPL play out is quite extraordinary.
Yeah, who's to say we won't see another there? Let's see how things go in this big qualifier. Thank you very much to Tom Moody and Gautam Gambhir. Get their thoughts at the end of the Mumbai Indians innings. Let's see if the defending champions can give Delhi a serious score to chase. They are favourites going into this one, but it is a qualifier, playoff game. Doesn't matter how Delhi have got here. It's all fair game now. Do join us then in our mid-inning show on Whirlpool Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by Dell.